Hello, welcome to this biology lesson on special cells, and this is in B2 topic of AQA syllabus. So this lesson covers how cell differentiation happens. I assume that you've already seen and gone through the previous video on cell structure and are familiar with the structure and function of the parts of animal and plant cells. So we're going to be just quickly reminded of cell differentiation, what that means as an organism develops, how a single cell differentiates into lots of special cells. And we're going to be looking at some examples of special cells, what adaptations they have, and how these adaptations, which are special designs or design features of these special cells, that help them perform their functions. Let's have a look at human development, and this is true for many animals, but this just serves as an example of how a single cell can develop into many different types of cells, which then can specialize to do particular functions. So let's have a look at this. This is the start of life, where a sperm meets the egg to form a single cell, and the single cell starts to divide and forms a ball of cells, but these cells are all identical in how they look like and the function. And these cells are commonly referred to as stem cells, or some of the cells are stem cells, which can develop into many different types of cells. For example, an organ like heart is made up of muscles and blood vessels, which contain different types of tissues, and each of them should have different properties, but they all come from the same type of cells, and that makes these cells not differentiated, but these cells are differentiated and specialized to do and perform their own special functions. For example, the nerve cells that makes the nervous system also come from the same undifferentiated cells. And white blood cells, they all look so different in their structure and their function, but they all come from the same cell, and this process is known as cell differentiation. And this is really important to understand, because we are going to be looking at how special cells are adapted for their function. Here is an example of a specialized cell which has adaptations to do its specific function. What you see here is a sperm cell, and this is produced in the testes of mammals, including humans. In the male sex organ testis, this is produced. Millions of these sperm cells are produced, so you're only looking at one of them. And how this is adapted for its function. Its main function is to transport the genes of the father, the male of the parent, to the egg cell of the female. So that is, the genes are present in the nucleus, which is over here. So this is basically a cell, but it doesn't look like the cells that we've been looking at so far, the plant and animal cells that we've been looking through. This one, as you can see, it's got an elongated shape. So how is this adapted to move? Because this has to move through a distance to reach the egg cell. So how is it designed to move there? Initially, it has got this streamlined shape, which allows it to move easily, and the head is pointed so it can penetrate into the egg cell. You got acrosome. Acrosome is a part near the tip of near the head of the sperm cell. This contains enzymes that allows the sperm to digest through the egg cell membrane, so it can go into the egg cell, so the nucleus of the male can fuse with the nucleus of the egg cell of the female. Okay, and the tail, that helps it to move and swim to the egg cell. So it has some distance to cover, and this is one of the few cells that can move in a human body by itself. Okay, and you also have an area, the middle area of the sperm, which is high in mitochondria. Mitochondria, as you know, is essential to release energy. For its size, sperm cell is one of the smallest cells in the body. I think this comes second smallest cell. So this is one of the smallest cells that you can find in the human body, and that means it requires less energy for movement. And for that size, it's got a high number of mitochondria in this middle section here, which to provide the energy for all the movement that it has to do. Okay, so to summarize, it's got acrosome, which contains enzymes near the head of the sperm cell, and the head is pointed so it can penetrate into the egg cell. Penetrating means it's going into. It has the nucleus. Obviously, the male genes are carried, but that's not a special adaptation. Here, you got high number of mitochondria for its size. This is very small. For that size, it's high number to provide the energy. Tail for movement and swimming towards the egg. Okay, what you see here is a female egg cell, not designed for movement. Its main function is to provide the nutrients and growth environment for the growing embryo and the cells that are dividing. So it has to have a large store of nutrients, food, in the egg itself. So it's one of the largest cells in the human body, the female body, because it has to provide enough energy for the growing fetus until it grows bigger and gets connected to the female body itself through the umbilical cord. So until that time, it has to have enough energy, and it exactly has got that. Because of the size, it can have a large store of the food. The other parts are obvious. It's got half the number of chromosomes, haploid number of chromosomes from the female, which has to join with the other half coming from the sperm to make the full number of chromosomes in a growing human. Okay, and it also has a lot of mitochondria to release the energy needed for the growing embryo. Nucleus, which contains the chromosomes. So the main adaptations are it has a large storage of food in the cell, and it is bigger in size because of that fact. And the large storage of food is to provide nutrient for the growing fetus. Okay, so for the growing embryo, it provides enough nutrients there. Okay, what you see here is another special cell, a fat cell. As you can imagine, this cell's main function is to store a lot of fat. So what you have is a particularly large area for the storage of fat, and this cell is expandable, and that's another adaptation. There is only a few mitochondria present in such cells, because the fat cell does not have too many function there. All it has to do is maybe convert the fat into energy form or other types of nutrients such as glucose when it's necessary. So this is a storage, and because of the comparatively less activity that the cell does, it has a fewer number of mitochondria. Nucleus and cytoplasm is common to all cells. It's not a special adaptation, but these two are. The number of mitochondria are fewer in number because the cell does not involve a lot of activities. So the energy demand is low. Fat storage, a big area for fat storage, and also it's expandable. So the cell can actually grow in size about 10 times its original size to store more and more fat if necessary. Here we have another special cell, nerve cell, also called as neurons, and there are 3 types of neurons. Here is one given here. So what you have here is just normal cell parts such as nucleus and cytoplasm, which is the pink area here, which is common to other types, normal cells, normal animal and plant cells. However, you can see the special design and adaptation that this has got. If you think about its main job, the main job of a nerve cell is to transmit information in the form of electrical impulses. It can be transmitting information from a sense organ such as the eye to the central nervous system, or within the central nervous system, for example from the spinal cord to the brain, or from the central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord, to a muscle cell, for example, where some action takes place. So this end could be connected to a muscle cell, muscle tissue, or some glands where an effect happens. So messages are carried along. So how is this cell specially designed and adapted for that purpose? So as I said earlier, it has normal parts, nucleus and cytoplasm, but it has these special parts. Let's have a look at them. Dendrites, which are the branched endings of the nerve cell which protrudes from the cell itself. So this outgrowth and branches enables the cell to connect with many other nerve cells and to gather electrical impulses from many cells if necessary. And then it passes the electrical impulse along the axon. Now axon it carries nerve impulse just like an electrical wire carrying electricity. And you also have myelin sheath which surrounds the axon, which acts as an insulating layer, just like the PVC or the polymer plastic around an electrical cable. You have this fatty layer around the axon, which makes sure that the electrical impulse travels through the axon and in an efficient manner. And this is really important, this part. If it gets damaged, you get serious people do get affected by damaged axon and get serious illnesses such as cystic fibrosis. So this has got its special adaptation. Another special adaptation is that the cell itself is pretty long, as it has to connect long distances within the body. And if you can imagine the main function being to carry nerve impulses from one place to another, it helps that the cell itself is long. To summarize the special adaptations of a nerve cell, it has this branched ending dendrites to connect to many other nerve cells, has the axon which carries the nerve impulse, and it is very long to connect long distances within the body. Myelin sheath, which is an insulating layer, so the electrical impulse travels along the axon efficiently. Let's have a look at a special cell of a plant. In the roots, the main job of the root is to absorb water or take in water and minerals from dissolved minerals from the soil. Okay, and as you can see here, the root it branches into thin roots and into these thin fibers, and at the tip of them you got this many thousands and thousands of these cells, the special cells, has got this protrusion, this projection into the soil. So it's got this elongated shape, and that's the adaptation. And how does it help? And as you can see, it can be surrounded by the soil and the thin layer of water, which contains the mineral essential for the plant growth. So it actually increases and maximizes the surface area of the root itself, which is in contact with water with essential minerals. So the key adaptation is this elongated structure of the root hair cell, which is present in the roots of a plant. This increases the surface area of the root, which means it can absorb or it can come into contact with a lot of water and dissolved minerals. What you see here is another special cell called cone cells, which is present in the retina, and these cells are present in the back of the eyeball, where the image falls. When you see something, the image falls there, and the color of the light is detected by these cells. So if you are able to see colored, in full color, it's because of these cone cells. And so what has it got in special? It's got special adaptations, obviously. So this outer segment contains photosensitive pigments, which means light sensitive pigments, which chemically change when colored light falls on it, depending on what color uh, of light falls on these pigments. So let's label that first. Okay, so what you have here, it contains light sensitive pigments in the cone which chemically change when colored light falls on it, depending on what color falls on it, and it sends a specific signal along the nerve to the brain, so we are able to see in color. We also have a higher number of mitochondria in this area to provide continuous energy to change the pigments back to its original form. So this changes to chemically, and this section provides the energy to keep changing it back to its original form, and this allows us to see continuously in color. Another special cell of plants is what's in the leaves. There are many special cells here actually. Let's have a look at one or two, and we are going to come back to this in the adaptations of a leaf later on in another video lesson. So let's have a look at just this cell which is on top of the leaf. So what you see here is a cross section of a leaf. When you cut through a leaf and put it under a powerful microscope with stains added, and this is how it looks like. Although these colors are false colors, they don't appear in these colors. This is just for diagram and to study this. So if you look at the top layer of the leaf, and they are called the leaf palisade cells, they have special adaptation. As you can see, sunlight falls straight onto these cells, okay, the top layer of the cells, and you'll also notice that they have more chloroplast than here. More chloroplasts mean maximum absorption of sunlight, which means more photosynthesis. So that is a special adaptation of these palisade cells. Okay, now with the label on, that is the palisade layer, and that's one palisade cell labeled. So the more chloroplasts in these cells mean more they can absorb more sunlight for maximum photosynthesis. It is important to use the word more because you're comparing the number of chloroplasts present in the palisade cell with the other cells within the leaf. As you can see, there are clearly chloroplasts present in other cells as well, but these cells have more than the other cells. Okay, one final review of this video lesson. You should now be able to describe the adaptations of special cells, not just normal cells, special cells. Explain how these adaptations help in their functions. For example, if you take a nerve cell, how its job is to carry messages from one place in the body to another place, and how it has special designs to carry out its function. And you should also be able to give examples of other special cells, describing them with scientific terms. It's really important. For example, root hair cell, it increases surface area in those terms. Okay, so I hope you have learned these things. You'll be glad to know that is the end of the lesson.